but he first rose to fame as a dancer, and boy, could he dance. That is how he met his wife, fellow dancer Allison Holker. She's a great dancer too. The couple were raising 3 children together when he took his own life back in December of 2022. It's what happened after his death, including Allison's recent release of a memoir that has fueled tensions between his widow and his family. We sat down with Stephen's mother, Connie Boss Alexander, and his brother, Jay Rose, after they reached out to us at Connie's home in Arizona. This interview took place right before Allison's book was released. What do you miss most? What do you want us to know about him as his mom, and what do you miss most?
That face.
That face.
Whenever we were apart and we would get back together, the first thing I would say is, oh, there's my face. There's my face.
Most people know Stephen Boss as Twitch, a charismatic dancer and daytime personality. But to Connie Boss Alexander, Stephen was her loving son.
He was kind and caring, and I know that sounds cliche, but he truly was kind and caring and always wanting to make sure you were okay and taking care of you. We're a very affectionate family, so very affectionate. He always kissed me on my forehead.
Yeah.
I miss that.
Connie last texted with Stephen on Monday, December 12th, 2022. She says it was an ordinary conversation. They talked about work and his children's Christmas list. The next morning, Connie says she got a phone call from his wife, Allison Holker, asking if she had heard from him. Hours later, he was found dead in a hotel room with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Connie's brother, Alan, told her the terrible news.
And I just remember Alan saying, Connie, he's gone. And I just dropped. You can't imagine those words.
I can. Connie says she is still processing Stephen's death and what she says happened next when she flew to California to be with Allison and the children.
The intent was to grieve together, be a family together, because we were a family, we were Boss. And we wanted to be there for her. We were, trying to figure out what we were going to do or what she wanted to do in terms of plans. And then I got a phone call saying, we need you guys to sign non-disclosure agreements. And we were like, why? What's going on? What is this for? And she says, well, somebody in the family has sold a story to a magazine. And we were like, what are you talking about? Who did this? And she said, Granddad. And that's Stephen's grandfather. And now, if you know my dad, he is the most respected, the most integrity. Would never do that. So a magazine did call him, and in the throes of grief, my father answered the phone, and they asked him
questions.
Right, and he's answering. Right, he's answering the questions. Saying we're grieving, we don't know what happened, whatever the answers were. But it was at that point that it became, you guys are doing this. We need you to sign this, and we were like, no, that is not true, and that's kind of where it started.
So that's when the friction started, asking for the NDA.
It went downhill from there.
You were asked to sign an NDA to go to the funeral?
It became, if you don't sign, you will not be able to see him and you will not be able to participate.
Connie says she signed a revised version of the non-disclosure agreement so that she could see her son before he was cremated. In her now released memoir, Allison Holker expressed concern about pictures of Stephen leaking to the public.
To make me sign a document to see the child that I brought into the world, I can't even put into words what that feels like. And this was a sensational story, so definitely there are going to be people out there who would take advantage of that. So I truly understand that. I guess my issue with it is that we are family. I'm his mother. What did you honestly think I was going to do? You know, his brothers, his grandparents, his uncle, his aunts. What did you think we were going to do?
Now, just over 2 years since Stephen's death, a People magazine article has become a new point of contention. It included details from Allison's book about Stephen's marijuana use, and Allison allegedly finding a, quote, cornucopia of other drugs in the home he shared with her and their 3 children after Stephen passed. And when you read it for the first time and heard it, what did you think? How did you react?
Immediately it was, oh my God. And then it was, this is going to be out there for the kids to see.
The People article also included details about Stephen's private journals, where Allison says he alluded to being sexually abused as a child.
I guess my thought is, first of all, that was his story to tell.
Were you aware that that was even a possible issue for him? You know, in the People article, she alludes that he seemed to indicate that he had been sexually abused by a trusted male figure in his life.
No.
You were not aware of any of that?
No.
Those details were also a shock to Stephen's younger brother, Dre Rose. So did you know about any of these issues before the People magazine article came out? Cornucopia of drugs, including mushrooms, pills, and other substances, implying that he had a serious drug issue.
I knew that recreationally he's used or tried things. That wasn't a shock to me. This cornucopia of drugs that have to be Googled, we don't even know if those were, we don't know anything to be true.
Finish that sentence. We don't even know if those were his?
Yes, I mean, really, it's hearsay. It's someone else's version. And if that is the truth, there could have been a better way to bring that to the family, and then we discuss, what that meant.
So you wish there would have been a conversation with the family?
Yes.
That I found this?
Do you know anything about it?
Were you aware of possible sexual abuse in his childhood? You know nothing
that was
about
new.
So that was a shock to you to hear that?
Yes. It was a shock to me. It was a shock to our father. Because when that comes up, it's like, well, hold on, a male figure.
A male figure.
Right. So now you have our family looking at each other like, well, what happened? And we didn't know anything of that nature.
When we talk about drugs, and she didn't use the word that he was an addict, but she did say that there were a lot of drugs. Couldn't she have known things about him that you two didn't? Mom wouldn't know, you wouldn't know.
It's a possibility.
The wife often knows more than the family, even as close as the family, so you don't give her a pass on that she may know things that you all didn't know.
I think
about him.
There are things that she knows that we didn't know, but also know that there are things about him that she didn't know.
Dre, who worked with Stephen, says his brother would often confide in him about struggling with issues like imposter syndrome, and together they would come up with ways to tackle his insecurities. He says Stephen told him that those conversations were difficult with Allison.
So, in my opinion, our conversation that he had with me, he felt silence, like he couldn't get it out.
He felt silenced in his own home?
Yes, often. Often. I mean, he loves his wife. He loved those kids.
Yes.
And he would definitely give them his last. But in any situation in which you can't have a conversation and get resolved, it becomes one-sided. And I believe, because you asked about their relationship, I can say that there were many conversations that were resolved. But he would always say to me, this is life, the lights are off. I'll figure it out.
A lot has been made about the NDA, that the family was asked to sign an NDA, to go to the funeral, to have the wake. What is your take about this NDA?
The NDA made my brother's life and experiences pretty much intellectual property.
The family shared a copy of the initial confidentiality agreement, which Dre says was sent by Allison's assistant 3 days after Stephen's death. It names Allison Holker, her family, and Stephen Boss as beneficiaries, and says that confidential information about their professional or business endeavors, personal lives, and any photographs, films, or videos cannot be disclosed, even in the course of casual discussions to any person or entity. In a revised version of that NDA, the Boss family and Allison's team changed the terms of the agreement from an unlimited time frame to apply only to the information learned between the time of Stephen's death and his memorial service.
It was presented to us as, we don't want pictures at the wake and funeral and things of that nature.
That's a fair request.
Two things can be true.
Yeah.
But if you have that in the beginning of the NDA and then in the fine print, it says all these other things that are included, that's the concern.
After the People magazine article was published, members of the Boss family and the public began reacting online. Allison Holker put out a statement in response to that backlash, saying in part that she hoped by sharing the full story, maybe I can help someone else who might see themselves or a loved one in Stephen. What do you say to that?
I see no accountability in that statement. I see no accountability in the fact that the family had to find out about these things in the manner that they did. And if that is what you want to convey or share to the public, bringing up someone's journal entries, that's not how you expose it. There could have been, hey, this is my experience and I want to let people know what to look for. But to use my brother's name and make it seem like he had this serious addiction problem and his sexual abuse allegation, that could have been true. That could have been true. But that isn't, I don't think that's the reason why my brother isn't here today.
You don't? Why do you think your brother isn't here today?
I think that's a question for Allison.
What are you saying, Dre?
I think she knows more than us because she was there. She knows his last known whereabouts. She knows the last conversation they had.
So the way to heal, because ultimately you want to see your grandchildren and you want to see your nieces and your nephews. So what do you do to heal this? And I'm not even saying it's all on you, but what can be done to heal this?
Extend the offer for a conversation.
Right?
I feel like we've extended our hand the past 2 years and there hasn't been consistency.
Extended outside of social media.
Outside, oh yes,
Yeah,
we
outside
have,
of social media.
there's many messages